Okay.
I just press got it on there.
Mhm.
And I have this clicker if you want to do the
Okay.
slideshow as well.
Okay, thank you. Wait. Uh-oh. Maybe I don't want this one. Okay. Hi, it's just us. So that's okay. We'll just make it personal. And for anyone who joins us on Zoom, welcome. My name is Courtney Nielsen, and I am the team leader for Nielsen Property Group, and I also own the branch office in Eagle Mountain, KW Cedar Valley. So Kaylee, it's Kaylee, right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So did you by chance make it to the last session? What have you guys learned so far on working with buyers or sellers? Mm-hmm.
We just learned yesterday about how we can present have a buyer's presentation, how to ask questions, things
Great.
like that, and with the seller, how it work with seller.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then listing presentation, and so many.
Okay, great. Okay, so yes. So today we're going to be talking about, now that you know how to talk to buyers and how to talk to sellers, and you are working with either one. Now we want to talk about making and receiving offers. So, oh crap. What did I do? Okay. All right. Am I going the right direction? Oh, geez. Maybe I need to use this instead.
Presentation. I think presentation is on the right side.
It's on the right side. Oh, here we go. There we go. Okay. All right. Yes. Okay. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the offer process, preparing the offer, writing the offer, presenting the offer. And then once we've, if we're on the listing side, we received an offer, how do we respond and go from there? So I really like this Gary Keller quote. It says, some of the best agents I know love nothing more than a difficult negotiation that gives them a chance to really shine, to acknowledge objections, to discover a solution with which both sides can be happy. So when I'm thinking about presenting an offer and I'm talking to my clients, I really want to stress the importance of coming up with a win-win solution for the buyers and sellers. So both parties are happy and they're both winning in the end. Obviously, with the buyer, we're going to do a few, we'll talk about some things that we do when we're setting up to write an offer. So the offer process looks something like this. So the buyer is going to make an offer. The seller is going to respond in one of three ways. You can either counter the offer, accept the offer, or reject the offer. But even with a rejection, that doesn't mean that it's completely, that's it, that they're not willing to negotiate. It just means, hey, maybe we need to represent another offer, or give them a call and say, hey, what are you looking for? Why did we reject the offer? I wouldn't say that is, so I guess the answer here is, don't assume no means no. It just means no right now. So if we counter the offer, then this takes us to a point of negotiation. If we accept the offer, then we're under contract and we begin the process of contract to close. And then, of course, when we reject the offer, that doesn't mean no forever. It just could be no right now. So maybe we want to resubmit another offer. That happens particularly when somebody sends like a low ball offer and the sellers are just like, nope, it's just too low. I'm not even going to respond to that. But if you want to come back with another offer that's closer to what we're asking, then maybe we can talk, right? So this is going to be the, okay. So when we're preparing an offer, there's a few things that I like to do, and we're going to toggle over to my team playbook here in just a minute. But the first thing we want to do is make sure the property is still available. So usually when my clients are interested in a property and before we show it, I'm going to call or text the agent and say, hey, just wanted to double check. Do you have any offers on the table on this house? Are you negotiating or is it still available? They say it's still available. We say, okay, we go look at the house. The clients fall in love. Before I do anything after that, even though the buyers are like, hey, we want to put an offer in, I'm going to call the agent again. Hey, my client is considering an offer. Is it still available? Because we don't want to waste our time in submitting an offer that on a house that's not available, or we need to know if there's another offer on the table and that if they're willing to look at multiple offers. So if there is, then that is going to change our strategy on how we're going to write the offer. If there's no other offers, then we might come in with like all of our big asks, If there is another offer on the table, then we have to consider, okay, we're competing with somebody else. What are the things that you absolutely need out of your offer? And what are the things that you could, so what are the non-negotiables and what are the negotiables? And then we write our offer depending on that. So another important step in writing an offer is it is super important to build the rapport with the listing agent. So whenever I've taught another class, I think it's negotiating the offer. We want to think about, we have two different negotiations going on and two different relationships that we're building. One, we're building a relationship with the other agent, and that's going to be a long-term relationship in that maybe today I'm going to submit an offer. We're going to work on a sale, a deal together. And then maybe I don't work on a deal with them for another month or two or a couple years, whenever it is. But there's a good chance if I'm working in the industry and they're working, we're going to come in contact with one another again. So I want to make sure that we are creating a good working relationship together so that in the future, if we're ever in a situation where, it is multiple offers, then I want them to say to their client, hey, I've worked with Courtney before. She's a great agent and she's someone that I think would be representing her client in their best interest and somebody that we could work with on the opposite side of a transaction, right? So that really does come down to it. And I have had experience with some agents where I'm like, oh, I don't ever want to do a deal with them again. And in that situation, if we have two offers that are almost identical, but one agent is not great to work with and one agent is, I'm going to encourage my clients to go with this other one, right? Obviously they get the last say, but it really does matter that you do build a relationship with other agents. And then the other negotiation is, or the relationship obviously is with your client, right? So we're not only fostering a relationship with them that's going to be long-term, but we're fostering that relationship with the other agent. So part of the inquiring about the activity, ensuring that it's still available, I want to find out, are there, like when we said, are there multiple offers? Have you had a lot of showings? Those are good questions to ask the agent when you are reaching out to them. Okay. If by chance there has been another offer on the property, but it's back active, we want to know why. They may not be able to tell us every detail, but it is important to ask. So if it fell through, because of due diligence, we want to know why, what happened in due diligence that made it fall through, or if it happened due to financing, then we want to know. So I have a list of questions and we'll get to those in just a minute, but we also want to ask, yes.
So they have to find out about their finances. Like what kind of finances?
So if I'm the listing agent, I want to know what kind of financing my client, but if what I mean is if an offer fell through, like they canceled and it's back on the market and my buyer is interested in that house, I want to know why it canceled. So maybe their financing fell through, they couldn't get qualified at the end. And that's going to be less of an issue to me than if there's a problem with inspections. Do you see what I'm saying? So I do want to know whether it was a due diligence issue or if it was a financing issue, because if it's a financing issue,
Like for this financing issue for the selling,
for the buyer,
for the buyer, okay.
the other buyer, not my buyer. Yeah. Another question that you could ask is how does the agent want to receive the offer? I usually send I personally prefer when an offer is sent to me that it's that the purchase contract is in one PDF and then each addendum or in their own PDF file. I don't like a completely what is it called? All of them put together. And just because when I have to go and file it in Command, I want to be able to put the Rep C in its place, addendum 1 in its place, addendum 2 in its place. And so I don't want to have to break it up. So it's easier for me if it comes in multiple PDFs. Some agents though might want one PDF that has the whole offer, right? You want to make sure that when you're submitting an offer, you have the pre-approval from their lender, and the seller is going to want to see that as well. Review the MLS and tax records. So when I'm preparing an offer, I always go to the MLS. I want to see what's included, what's not included. I want to double check the tax information and see who's on record, who's the owner, because a lot of times on the MLS, it doesn't list who the owner is. And so you have to do a little investigation. You have to go to the tax records and find that, who owns it, and also to see if the taxes have been paid and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, before we submit an offer, we're going to do another comparative analysis on the property that my buyers are considering purchasing. We want to know if it's listed accurately, if we feel that what they're asking is a fair price, or are they asking too much, or are they on the low end? If they're asking too much, then I'm going to provide some comps. If we're coming in with a lower offer, I'm going to provide some evidence that they listed too high. And this is why we're offering low, because of these 2 or 3 comps that are show lower. I need evidence to support our lower offer, maybe not low ball, but lower offer, right? Because a lot of times people will say, well, let's offer 50,000 less. Well, why are we offering 50,000 less? Like, you have to have a reason to offer $50,000 less. You can't just say, well, I don't think it's worth that much, so I'm going to offer 50,000. We have to have evidence to support a lower offer. If we don't have that and the comps show that what they're asking is fair, then we do need to be around that asking price, right? Another thing that is helpful is to get the seller's disclosures before you write the offer. Not all of the time are they available, but if you ask for them, they will sometimes get them over to you sooner, and your buyer can look through those seller's disclosures before we submit an offer. It's helpful to have that information. So if we hop up here to my, okay, let's see. Okay. So I have this offer checklist. If you're in the class, or if you're in the, I forget, the team when you join as a new agent with KW, sometimes you're on that, or that team. What is the name of it? Blanking, whatever. You might have this already or something similar to it. Okay, so this is really helpful, I think. So this goes through a list of questions that you can ask and some text. So So key questions to ask the listing agent: are there any current offers? If yes, that's great to hear. Now I want to make sure that we put our best foot forward when writing up an offer. Can you share some of the details of your current offers? Sometimes they will share, sometimes they won't. And they can only share if their clients have given them permission to share. When are you showing the offers to your client? So if there are multiple offers, you want to know when they're planning to show the offers to their client and review them, so that you can get your offer in prior to that time. So your offer can be considered as well. And then I always ask this question: obviously price is important to your client. On top of that, what else is important to your client? When you're structuring an offer, it is also really important to consider, okay, so we need to consider some different things when we're putting together an offer or structuring an offer. We want to consider how big of an earnest money deposit we're going to present with the offer. Depending on the purchase price, depending on the market conditions, that all plays a part in determining how big of an earnest money deposit you are going to encourage your client to put down. I would say larger homes that are like in the million range, they're going to want to see a larger down payment, and not down payment, earnest money. I would say at minimum 10,000, but even more generally in those price points, like at least 2%. So 20,000 or so for an earnest money deposit. We usually recommend 1 to 2% regardless of price. Now, obviously, if your client doesn't have 1 or 2%, and maybe they're getting a VA loan, or maybe they're getting a Utah housing loan that is 100% finance, then, we're going to maybe reduce that earnest money. I would not do a $500 earnest money. I still see sometimes $1,000 earnest money, but I wouldn't recommend that unless it's something they absolutely have to do. I would recommend doing a larger amount, like at least 1 or 2% minimum. So on a $500,000 house, we're looking at a $5,000 earnest money deposit. If that's not acceptable, then okay, can you do half that? Can you do 2,500? If they can't do that, okay, can you do 1,000? We just kind of go off of what the client can do or what they're comfortable with. Now, earnest money deposit this is something to make sure that your clients know. It is, well, depending on how the offer is structured, generally it can be refunded back to the client if they cancel prior to due diligence deadline, and also if a later time, if they can't get their financing, and then they can cancel due to financing and get their earnest money back. If an offer is structured where the earnest money deposit is non-refundable at acceptance, then if they cancel anytime after acceptance, even for due diligence reasons or financing, they lose their money. If a seller cancels, this is a two-way agreement. If a seller cancels, then they're going to have to pay the buyer the same amount. So they'll give back the earnest money and have to pay them. It's really difficult for a seller to get out of a contract, and they have to pay. And that was one solution. Sometimes it goes to court and earnest money isn't an acceptable amount for the buyer to feel okay with the seller canceling. But the buyer does have some outs. And another question that buyers always ask is where does that earnest money go? So that is applied to the down payment or the closing costs, however they want it, but it is part of their down payment funds. So I always feel like I have to remind buyers that. Cash offers are great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to win the contract, because a bank giving money is still cash, right? It's all money. I have seen where cash is made a big deal when a seller has to move quickly, or maybe it's a multiple offer and it's the multiple offers has taken the purchase price well above ask. and they say we'll pay cash because they're going to waive the appraisal and we can close in 2 weeks, that might be, you know, something that the seller really likes, and so they might go with that cash buyer. But if they have time, then a lot of times they'll just say, well, I'm going to go with the offer that is giving me the most net, you know, and that isn't always the case with cash. So another thing on the down payment portion, so on the Rep C, there's a section where you can, you know, you put the purchase price and then you put how much the earnest money is going to be, the down payment, all the things, and then it totals it up, right? In that section, it is good to show if your client is putting down, you know, 10 to 20%, you want to definitely provide that information in that section, because, you know, if I had a client and it looks like they have 0 down payment, or not a client, if I have an offer that has like 0 down payment and this over here says they're going to put 20% down, well, I'm going to say, okay, well, this buyer seems like they are more qualified and prepared to buy this house. I have more confidence in them that they're going to be able to close versus this person over here who doesn't have as much money down, right? So that's important to show. But those figures are not locked in on the amount. So if say your buyer just sold a house and they have 30% down, and their intention going in is, hey, I want to put 30% down on my house because I want a lower mortgage payment. Well, then when they go talk to their lender, the lender says, you know, rather than putting 30% down, why don't you just put 20% down and take that 10% and pay off this vehicle, or you know, this credit card or something, or keep that money in your pocket so that you can take care of any repairs or whatever. So if their original intention and they have the money is 30%, but later the lender says, no, let's change that, it's okay. But I wouldn't like put a number down that they actually don't have. Like, you have, you know, be honest in the amount of money that they have that they can put down. But that figure, there is a section in that that area of the contract that says that those numbers can change. They're not like exact. Let's see. Okay, some important points to review with the buyer. So I'm going to pull up the Rep C. This is where we get to test myself and see if I remember my password. Woohoo, okay. All right, so if we go to the Rep C, where's it? Okay, here we go. This is what I'm referencing. This section right here, section 2.1, you put the purchase price in, you put the amount of earnest money. If there's any additional earnest money that they're going to put down, you know, at the end of due diligence, how much their new loan is going to be. Are we asking for any amount of seller financing, the balance of purchase price and cash at settlement? And then, so this number right here is how much cash they're bringing in. That's their down payment. And then right here is, you add all of these up. This number down here should total this number here. They should match. Okay, so we're going to go through the Rep C really quick, and some things to consider and sections of the Rep C that I don't want you to forget. You want to pay attention to these sections of the Rep C when you're preparing an offer. Also, I want to stress the importance of being very detail oriented when submitting a contract. Okay, so you want to double check, triple check, quadruple check your contract before you submit it for signatures and before you submit it to the other side of the, you know, to the listing agent. Spellings, make sure the math is added, make sure the address is right, All of the information we want to make sure is there and correct. I have seen sloppy offers come in before, and my immediate perception of the other agent when a sloppy deal contract comes in is not good. Especially if there's multiple offers and this one is a mess over here. I am not going to recommend we go with this offer because there's mistakes all the way through. And so you really need to be detail oriented. This is where my A-type personality comes in. So if you're not A-type personality, like really find that part of you when you're writing a contract. Okay, so the different sections that we really want to pay attention to, well, it's all important, but let's go up here. Section 1.2. Okay, so you want to make sure, I'm wondering if I need to, I want to toggle back and forth and show. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to toggle back and forth because I want to pull up a let's just look for a listing. So let's pull up this one right here. Okay, so here's a listing. This is one of my listings. When we say check the tax data, you'll click on this link that will direct you to another page that shows the property details and also who owns the property. You also want to double check and see, okay, how much is the HOA? How much is the HOA transfer fee? We want to double check on the tax records. It will also show the square footage. So we want to see if it's similar or matches up. It's close to it. We want to know if the basement's finished, because when we're looking at comps, we want to know which comps are comparable, and if it doesn't have a basement finish, then and versus one that does, then we have to know what that adjustment is for a home with a basement and a home without the basement. For our offer, I think it's important to know the acreage. So how big is the lot in comparison to the other houses that we're looking at our comps, and what's the year that it was built. And then we also want to know what's included and what is excluded. So right here on the listing, it says the inclusions on this particular listing are the dryer, refrigerator, washer, and the window coverings. Okay, it doesn't list any exclusions here. So if there was something excluded, then that would need to be noted on the contract. So up here on 1.1, it says these are the items that come with the house no matter what. And this section right here, other included items, this is where you want to make sure. So what was included on that? Washer, dryer, refrigerator, and yep. So we put other and we put window coverings. If there's anything else that we're including that wasn't listed as an inclusion, then it would need to go here in this area. Sometimes the Ring doorbell is one that we need to add. But if you look here, what's included with a sale is plumbing, heating, air conditioning, fixtures and equipment, solar panels, ovens, ranges and hoods, cooktops, dishwashers, ceiling fans, water heaters, water softeners, light fixtures and bulbs, bathroom fixtures, mirrors, all window coverings, including curtains, draperies, rods, window blinds and shutters, window and door screens, storm doors, awnings, satellite dishes, all inside installed TV mounting brackets, all wall and ceiling mounted speakers, affixed carpets, automatic garage door openers, and accompanying transmitters, security system, and fencing in any landscape. Okay, so sometimes sellers want to take their TV mount because it goes with their TV. They don't want to buy another one. Okay, so in that case, you would need to specify down here in 1.3 that it's excluded. So here it says the window coverings are all included. Okay, so if they're going to exclude any portion of those, a lot of times sellers want to exclude their curtains because they like their curtains and they don't have to buy new curtains. So you would put that here. And another thing is to note, another thing to note are the rods. So if the rods are also something your seller wants to keep, then you need to note that down here in the exclusion. So I had a deal a couple years ago, and this was a larger property, a 5-acre parcel, and there was a goat shed that was not affixed to the property, and it had like a little temporary fence around it. So when my clients left, that was a not included thing because it wasn't like a permanent fence. It wasn't a permanent structure. It was something that they could move around. We failed to put that as an excluded item. So my sellers took everything, and then the buyers didn't move in for like another month. They moved in and they said, "Where's the goat shed and where's the fence?" And it was gone. The sellers had already sold it. They didn't even belong to them. Actually, it belonged to their son because he's the one with the goats. So in the end, what happened is I ended up having to pay a little bit of money well, I didn't have to, but that was one thing that the buyer agreed to is, "Hey, we'll give you $1,000. Are you okay? Would that satisfy, the cost of having to replace that?" And they took it. And so that was basically our restitution for the goat sheds taken. And I took that responsibility on me because I failed to make sure that it was listed in the exclusion section of the MLS. So rather than putting that on my clients, I took responsibility for that because I felt like that was something that I missed and made an error. So I paid.
So when that happened, how do you negotiate the price between seller and buyer?
On that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So the buyers said it was like a really cheap, they said it was only like $300 or something is what they paid for it. And so I went back to the seller and said, "Hey, it was like a $300 structure. Their son bought it. It didn't even belong to them. And $300 wasn't enough for him where he still wanted it all back." And so I was like, "Okay, well, would he take 500? Nope. Okay, well, how does 1,000? And would he be okay with that?" And so he said, "Yes, he'll take 1,000. And I guess what he calculated is like, what was the cost of replacement for him? If he went out and bought it brand new from somebody, what would it cost him? So, I mean, yeah, I could have gone down to the tractor store and I could have, priced it all out, but I didn't want to. Although sometimes that happens, or sometimes the seller takes the fridge that was supposed to be included, but was excluded. Okay, well, or there was a misunderstanding. The agent might have put it as an included option, but the seller never intended to leave it. Well, then the agent has to come back and, they're responsible for that if they put it in that's why it's important when you're filling out the paperwork and you're entering the information on the MLS that everything is accurate because you're responsible if you mess up. So
the things we have to replace as an agent, we have to do the paperwork for that, or we don't need it?
no, I have actually for the fence, we did draft up a little letter that said that they were taking $1,000 in lieu of the goat structure. And this is final payment. And they signed it, we signed it, everybody signed it. So yeah, you can do something like that, but I have known agents who have to buy a brand new fridge for the buyers because the seller took it and they were never planning to leave it, but the agent thought they were. So that sucks because, you know,
Yeah, so like I bought a house and then when I moved in, so like the curtain rod and curtain everything was gone.
yeah.
And then since seller they removed it, there is a holes and it looks so bad. And I asked my agent and he said, oh, is $50 okay with you? And at that
No.
time I thought it's okay, but now I think about it, it's so low, $50 for everything.
Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah, I didn't know about this part, like
Yeah.
it's including the, what is it, window cover?
So this actually was this rep C has been edited recently. So I don't, it used to say something different right here with the fencing and landscaping also. Oh no. So right here is the important thing too. This sale includes the following items if presently owned and in place on the property. So my clients did not own the goat fence. Their son owned the goat fence and structure. So, but the buyer still thought he was getting that, and it was in the pictures. So that's why we had to fix it, you know. But I can't remember if the window coverings and curtains and all of that has always been there. So I don't know. We'd have to look back and
They like this, so they want to keep it up.
yeah.
but
So
they
then
always not exclude items.
yes. And I feel like if you are going to exclude anything like that, then you as a seller, it's your responsibility to patch those holes. I would ask that if I knew that that was excluded. I would make sure that as an agent taking care of my buyer, I would make sure that the sellers are going to agree to repair the holes in the wall where they remove all of those rods, because that's unfair to you to have to move in and have to patch everything.
Since I don't have the paint color, it's so like weird.
Yeah, exactly. So you want it to look like they were never there, you know? So I would definitely make sure that you negotiate that if you see that as an excluded item. Okay, water service. So the purchase price for the property shall include all water rights and water shares, if any, that are the legal source for seller's current culinary water service and irrigation water service. So some properties, most properties that we deal with don't have water shares, right? It's just they're on culinary water, they're hooked in with the city, and you know, life is just normal for everyone. Nobody has to worry about that, right? But on larger properties, sometimes they have water shares for irrigation or stock animals. They're not connected to the city culinary water, so they have a well water, right? So they have shares. So if here it says that they are going to be transferred, the purchase price includes the water shares and water rights, but they're actually not transferred at closing at settlement. They're actually not transferred through the title company. So a separate form has to be filled out, and it has to be done through the water division. So it is included, so it belongs to them, but the actual transfer of ownership has to be done separately outside of the sale. I didn't know this until I did a, let's see, until I had to, so if we go to the Utah Water Division, Utah Division of Water Rights is where you would go. And I have a client right now who's selling a house in Clarkston, Utah. It comes with 1.7 acres shares of water. So if your client says, we have water shares that are being transferred, then you need to find that information that is part of the seller's disclosure. So you would search here. I don't know a lot of times it's easiest to just search by the owner's name. Okay, so you're going to search for those, scroll down to the people that or that your homeowners. Okay, now it's gonna have a water right number and this whole information about the water rights. So it says it has 1.73 acre feet, underground water well, it's existing. There are 2 wells on the property, and then it tells you down here how that water right can be allocated. So one's gonna go for an EDU, that means a house. And then the stock water, you can use for 10 stock animals, basically. And then you can do a 1/4 acre of irrigation with the water share. So all of this has to be transferred outside of the sale, and there's paperwork on the Utah Division of Water Rights website where you can do that. So going back to the contract, okay, actually, all right, so we have purchase price, earnest money deposit, loan amount, and down payment in section 2. So we want to make sure that all of that information is correct. So look up here, we have earnest money section here. So you're going to say how much they're going to put, and remember we said 1 to 2%. So if it's a $500,000, they do 1%, 5,000. Then you want to make sure that the address and everything matches up with what shows on the, so you're going to go to the listing and you're going to click on the tax ID and you're going to make sure that matches. Something else that Dean really likes to see is he likes to see the MLS number on here somewhere. So he would put, okay, so if this is the address 3033 South Willow Creek Drive, he would put in parentheses next to it, MLS number 1881341, so that you have that reference point to go back. Because what is on this MLS sheet is what, I mean, everything that's on here, that's what you're selling. So we need to make sure that that's included as part of the contract. Okay. Let's see. Make sure that, again, in section 2.1, that everything adds up on this line and this line. 2.2 is an important part of the contract. So this is whether or not the sale is contingent on the buyer selling their house. So they might own a house, they have to sell that house in order to buy this house. So this is an area that I always check, is or is it not conditioned upon the sale of real estate owned by the buyer. So that's the section that you want to pay close attention to. Scroll down. I want to know their possession. I want to know, when does the seller have to turn over the keys to the buyer? Upon recording? So many hours after recording, or so many calendar days after recording? So usually sellers need like a day or 2 to move, and that's normal. So usually I'd put in here like 48 hours after recording or 3 days after recording. So usually that means if it's days, you put on this button, this here, 3 calendar days after recording means if it closes on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 5 p.m., we're going to give them the keys. Okay. Sometimes people ask for a short-term lease back. So some lenders and loan programs will only allow you to do a short-term lease up to 60 days. So if you do that, then if you're asking for that, then you're going to put 60 calendar days here. And then there's a separate form for a short-term lease back agreement that you would fill out as part of the contract. Okay, so you can go up to 60 days here for most lenders. There's some, if it's cash, it's not going to matter, but the lenders won't let somebody, most of the time it's like FHA won't let somebody, they want the buyers to move in within 60 days. Okay, section 4 is also really important. So this matches up with the HOA information. So first you want to check to see if there's an HOA. So if we go to the listing, remember there was an HOA right here. So it's $85 a month, and there is a transfer fee of $812. Who's going to pay for that transfer fee? Well, it's negotiable. It's negotiable. Yep. So in the contract, in section 4, it's going to say if there's been any assessments for capital improvements as approved by the homeowners association, who's going to pay for those? The seller, the buyer, or split equally. This is not the transfer fee. This is something different. So like, for example, that property that I told you about that was like 5 acres with the goat shed. So they had agreed with all of their neighbors. There was like a dirt road, like a gravel road that went to their houses, and they agreed as a neighborhood to pay for the streets to be paved. Well, that was an additional like $10,000 or $15,000. And so who's going to pay for that? Because so the sellers aren't going to be able to enjoy those asphalt roads because they're moving before they're put in, but the buyer will get to enjoy those. But who agreed to it? So you got to come to an agreement on who's going to pay for that. In that case, the seller, I think, gave them a credit to cover that. It was actually taxed like over 5 years for that. I guess the city taxed the homeowners, but my sellers gave a credit for that because they agreed to it, but they weren't going to enjoy it. So anyway, so that's something that, or I've seen like an condo complexes or townhome complexes. So maybe the townhome or condos are saying, oh, we're going to replace this playground in the park. And so it's going to be an extra $500 from every homeowner in our community to pay for that. Okay, well, who's agreeing to pay for that? So usually when I'm submitting an offer on behalf of my clients, I have the seller pay for all of those. And then if they don't agree to that, then we negotiate, after. So I'm usually going to put the seller's going to pay for that. Here, an HOA entity fees due upon change of ownership. So this is the transfer fee. Remember, it was $812. Who's going to pay for that? Seller, buyer, or split between the buyer and seller. So depending on whether there's multiple offers, depending on the market conditions, like right now in this market, depending on the price point, I might ask for the seller to pay for that. Last year, when it was multiple offers, the buyer's going to pay for that. Or, hey, you know what, why don't we just split it? So, okay, you want to make sure that your agency is properly disclosed in here. Scroll down to the next section that I think is really important not to miss. Section 8 is really important. So this is the conditions of purchase. So section 8.1 talks about due diligence condition. So this is the part of the contract where the buyer has the opportunity to do a home inspection, find out if there's anything wrong with the property. And if there are some things wrong with it, they can ask for repairs or money in lieu or do nothing, right? Well, right now in this market, I would probably say that it is conditioned upon the buyer's due diligence. When the market was vastly different and we were seeing, multiple offers over asking price, sometimes the buyers would say it's not conditioned upon the buyer's due diligence. And so that was important for the seller to know and for us to know, is it or is it not conditioned upon due diligence? Because that means they can or can't cancel based off of what they find in an inspection report, right? And get their earnest money back. So if it says it is not conditioned upon the buyer's due diligence and after, after they've signed the paperwork, they're under contract, they say, you know what, I want to cancel. Well, they can cancel, but they're going to lose their earnest money. Another important is this appraisal condition. Is the property conditioned upon the property appraising for not less than the purchase price, or is it not conditioned? So this is important to note. So on a cash deal, a lot of times they'll say, no, it's not conditioned upon the property appraising because they're paying cash. They don't want to pay for an appraisal either, and they're paying cash anyway. So it's the lender's not requiring them to have an appraisal. If you're getting financing, the lender's going to most likely require an appraisal. Now, during that time of the market where we were getting, 5, 10, 20 offers on a property, some people would waive this appraisal condition. So I actually had a client who, I think the house was being sold for $715,000. He offered $800,000. And he waived the appraisal condition, meaning if the house came in less than $800,000, he had to bring in cash the difference. So if the house was $750,000 appraisal, because he was still getting a loan for it, and so the lender required that they get an appraisal, the appraisal came in at $750,000, but they've agreed to pay $800,000, and they have waived the appraisal condition. He would have to pay that $50,000 gap in cash. So I was like, are you sure? Are you sure you want to raise this? Like, do you have the money to cancel or do you have the money to pay for the difference if it comes to that? Luckily, the house appraised for $800,000 and all was well, but he took that risk that he may have to pay $85,000 in cash. Yeah, it was totally crazy, but it all worked out in the end. But that's the kind of thing that we were dealing with last couple of years. So it's vastly different right now in this market. So that is something. Okay, down here, right here, the financing condition is no financing required or is financing required. So if they have to get a loan, then they're going to have to click this button. If it's a cash deal, you're going to click no financing required. If you're getting a hard money loan or private money, even though like they don't have to go through a whole loan approval process, they do have to get financing. So this is an area of debate on, do you click this box or this box? And if it were me, I would click financing required because they technically are getting a loan. It's not a traditional loan, but it is a loan. Some agents might click this because they say, well, it's like cash. So this is a question we need to ask Dean. What do you want us to put? But I personally would do this one just because they are getting a loan. Okay, right here is another important part of the contract. So this is section 8.3I. All right. So this is a section where you can pay additional earnest money deposit. So they can cancel before the appraisal deadline. But they're saying that this section, you can either add more or you can release. So if our earnest money deposit was $5,000, we're going to say $2,500 of that is going to be non-refundable at the due diligence deadline. I would put $2,500 here. And that means if I cancel between the due diligence deadline and financing, the seller gets to keep $2,500 and I get to have $2,500 back of my earnest money deposit of $5,000. Does that make sense? So we want to look at this. If this is, you're not giving any money, non-refundable, and in this market condition, I probably wouldn't unless it was a multiple offer situation, then I would put $0 here. So make sure that you're not leaving blanks. You either put 0 or NA. So this one right here is 8.4. This is the additional earnest money part. So I'm saying, okay, at the due diligence deadline, I love the house so much that right now I've said I'll do $5,000, but at the due diligence deadline, I'm going to add $2,500 more than, because I just know that my financing is going to work out and it's all going to be good and I really love this house. Then you could put that right here. If you're not going to deliver anything, then you put will not and put 0. Okay, this section addenda, you want to make sure that if you have additional addenda that you mark that you have it as part of the offer. So there are addenda and that's going to be there. Maybe there's 2. So you're going to put addenda, you're going to click this box and you're going to put addendum 1 and 2. If there's a VA or FHA loan, then you have to fill out an additional addendum and you need to click this button and let them know. If there's another type of addendum that isn't listed here, maybe it's earnest money is being held in a title company instead of with the broker, there's an addendum for that, then you would click this button and put earnest money deposit. Say what it is. Okay. Section 10. Is a home warranty plan going to be included with the transaction? Yes or no? And who's going to pay for it? And who's going to order it? Okay, so when I'm usually writing a contract for my clients, I'm going to say, well, generally, we're going to say, yes, we want a home warranty. The buyer is going to order it. And the buyer is going to select which company they want to go for. But we're going to ask, or we're going to say it's $550 or $500, and it shall be paid for by the seller. So that's generally what I'm going to do in a market condition like this, like the one that we're in today. If it were a multiple offer situation, then maybe I'll pay for the home warranty so that my clients have that peace of mind knowing that they have a warranty going in for the first year. Maybe that's my gift to them. Or maybe the buyer is like, well, I'll just pay for it. Or maybe they're like, I don't want one at all. Just don't worry about it. If we decide to get one, we'll get one later. Okay, so this in a multiple offer situation, this is something that would affect the net offer. So you do want to, think about who's going to pay for this home warranty. $500 warranty is a typical home warranty program. But sometimes, okay, if there's 2 fridges, then maybe you want to up that amount. So I personally like to use either Elevate or Ibex. Silverback's a good one too. They're all local companies, and they all offer really great home warranty programs. So on Elevate's site, it will say, it'll have some, and Ibex's and Silverback, they'll have different plans. And so there's the basic plan, and then there's, an upgraded plan, like a middle plan, and then there's like a fully loaded plan. So I usually go somewhere between the bottom and the middle that we ask for. Yeah. So here's another thing, caveat to the home warranty. If the home is a big house, like a luxury home, a $500 or $600 warranty is not going to cover it. So that's where you'd have to call the home warranty company and say, hey, I have a 7,500 square foot home that has 2 kitchens. Tell them everything that it has in this property, radiant heating, all the things. How much would a home warranty be for this house based off of this square footage and the things that are in their house? They'll give you a quote, and then you would put that number in here. So I made the mistake of putting in just a regular home warranty of $500 on like a $8,000 or 8,000 square foot home, my very first luxury home that I did, not realizing that that wasn't even going to cover hardly anything. So I learned from that, and now I know that you have to call the home warranty company, get a quote, and then put that number in. So I would say a typical one is like $1,200 to $1,500 for a large home, but you still would want to double check on that. Okay. The next section that you're going to pay attention to is the mediation. Are we requiring mediation, or are we saying they have the option for it, or they can just go straight to litigation? So we usually put may at the option of the parties. So it's a choice between the sellers. We're not requiring it because mediation can be expensive. And so we say that. Okay, drop down. Yeah.
About the warranty.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know much about warranty. And is it the one-time payment?
So yes, so it's a one-time payment at closing for 1 year. So if you want to continue that home warranty, then you could re-up and pay that to the home warranty. But usually with the sale, it's only 1 year that's paid for. And then when it expires, it expires. If you want to continue paying for that, I think that's a great idea.
So like if they decide to go with $500 of warranty, and they maybe 2 months later, I think I need more coverage for my house. Can they upgrade to the?
They can.
They just pay the difference?
Yep. Yep. So I actually had some clients who own a bunch of rental properties. They own them free and clear, and they would put a home warranty on the house and pay for that every year. so that if something went wrong, all they had to do was call the home warranty company and they would come out and replace or fix whatever went wrong. So that was like, instead of hiring a handyman, they just would budget annually. Okay, for this house, it's a $500 home warranty. The oven broke, call the home warranty company, they come out and fix it. So
Like, is the premium is.
no, but you do have a usually like a service call fee, which is like 75 or something like that with every service call that comes out. But the repair is covered, or a replacement. So I actually had a client who was buying a home that was about 20 years old. It was up in Pepperwood and Sandy, and all of the mechanical systems were kind of getting old. And there was a high probability of those systems going out in the next couple of years. So what we negotiated as part of the contract, we negotiated a 2-year home warranty so that if those go out during the first 2 years, then those would be covered. Now, usually with the home warranty companies, say an HVAC system goes out, there's usually like a dollar amount, like limit, so maybe it's a $5,000 or $7,500 limit. So they'll only pay up to that point. And then if there's any more, like if it's a $10,000 unit that you have to replace, then you would be responsible for $2,500 of it. But it's still a really good deal. And I think it's a good negotiation. And I feel like for my clients who are buying older homes and the systems are older, like I always try to do a 2-year so that if something breaks within the first 2 years, those major things are covered, like water heater. Water heater and your HVAC systems are the things that I'm most worried about because those are expensive.
So before closing, do you go over like what their warranty covers?
Yes. Yeah. So I send them an email that, because in that section, we say that they're going to be able to pick the home warranty company, right? So I'll send them an email when they need to select their home warranty company. And I'll say, okay, the negotiated amount that the seller's going to pay is $500. Check. And I give like a link to Elevate, Ibex, and Silverback. And then they go and they look at the different plans and they say, okay, we want to go with Elevate. And we want this plan that's $700, but they're only getting a $500 credit from the seller. So they would have to pay the $200 difference. Yeah. But on the bigger houses, if I know they're older and I know the systems are older, then at negotiation initial contract, we would consider that when we put in the offer. So I would say, okay, for a 2-year home warranty on this, Ibex is $750 for their, well, at one point, this was several years ago, it was $750. So if we get a 2-year, that's $1,500. So I would put that in.
So like before writing this offer, do you let your client shop around and pick the home warranty before?
I don't usually, you can. I don't usually send over the home warranty companies yet, but on the older homes like that, if the system is like 20 years old and the house is 20 years old, then I probably would say, hey, look at these companies and pick the one that you think is the best one and that will give you the best coverage for whatever the item is that. So like the seller doesn't want to replace the HVAC system because it's still working, but it's old. Well, a good solution is let's put on a home warranty and then that would cover it. So that way the seller knows that, hey, in the first 2 years, I'm not going to have any major costs. Like, because what would be really crappy is if you move into a house and 6 months later, or how about 1 year and 1 day later, the HVAC system goes out and now I got to pay 10 grand to replace the whole thing. And that actually happened with one of my clients. She bought a condo and I think it was like 1 year and 1 month later, it went out and she had to put in a whole new air conditioner system and it was $10,000. So anyway, that's a great thing to do if you want. It's a good negotiating tactic. Okay, the next part that's really important to consider are the contract deadlines. So when do you want the seller's disclosures, due diligence, financing, and settlement? The typical rule of thumb is giving them 7 days, 14 days, 21, 28 days. So it's like 28-day closing schedule. and you give a week for each thing. Now, sometimes the buyers don't like that or the sellers don't want to see a 14-day due diligence period. So they're going to want to tighten up those deadlines. But, typically that's what you would do. So like say it was in the market where we had multiple offers, I might do, a 5-day due diligence deadline. So we'll hurry up and get an inspection in as soon as possible so that they weren't like off market. The seller wouldn't be off market for very long. Or another thing is, you could negotiate like, we ordered the home inspection. We've seen the seller's disclosures before they were even under contract. And so then you can do it faster, or you could waive it altogether. But in a typical market, 7, 7, 7, 7. So 7, 14, 21, 28. This is another important thing to go over is section 25, offer and time for acceptance. So if the seller does not accept this offer by 5 p.m. on, say, tomorrow, I don't know what is today, June 24th tomorrow, then this offer shall lapse. So a lot of people think this is the response deadline. It is not. It is the acceptance deadline. So they have until 5 p.m. tomorrow to accept it. If they don't accept tomorrow at 5 p.m., then what happens? So you can at that point, it could just, the offer lapses, or you could counter offer after, and that resurrects the offer. So you can counter and then extend that to be more time. Time is of the essence. You don't want to like drag things on, but see, it's like getting close to the deadline. And it's like 5 p.m. It's like 4:30 and you've been talking to your clients about, hey, what do you want to do? And they've just been like on the fence. I don't know. I don't think I want to accept, but they haven't told me exactly what they want to counter for. I'm going to call the other agent. I'm going to say, hey, my clients, they're considering your offer. They're going to counter. So I would let the buyer's agent know they're going to counter. So they know an acceptance isn't coming in. And so we're not going to have it to you by 5 p.m., but we are going to counter. And so expect to see that tonight, after the deadline. So it's not a response deadline. It's an acceptance deadline. Okay. So that's the main points with the offer. Some things that I do. Yes.
I'm a little confused difference between response and acceptance. What's a response?
So a response was, oh, you have to get me a counter offer by 5 p.m. No, you don't have to get them a counter offer by 5 p.m. You have to accept it by 5 p.m. But if you want to counter, you can go beyond 5 p.m. as long as you're communicating with the other agent that that's what you're going to do. I wouldn't go silent. I think always communication is important wherever you're at in the deal. Okay, so if I've received an offer from a buyer, what am I going to do? All right. So I have a spreadsheet that is like an estimated net that actually my assistant created it for me. But how do I make this bigger? Okay, so I'm going to put in, the date of the offer is today. It automatically does today. I'm going to put in the address, 123 Hello Street. I'm going to put in Orem, Utah, and I'm representing the seller. So this is going to say whatever the commission that we agreed upon, I'm going to put here. So if it's a 6% commission, then I just change that and it changes the numbers over here to be 3% of the purchase price right? Or if it's a 5%, so we're splitting a 5, then that's 2.5. Okay. I charge a $295 transaction fee. And then we just do a rough escrow fee percentage. So I do like 0.6% or 0.65%. I'm going to put in the property tax information. So remember, back here, you would click on the tax information and it will tell you how much the taxes are, or it's generated right here. But I don't always trust what's on the MLS listing. I always want to double check with the tax page. So going back to my spreadsheet, so this is automatically calculated. So it was $3,100 a year. I'm going to put in my dates because the seller is responsible for the taxes from January 1st all the way until closing date. So we're going to close on, we're going to close 6/27. Okay, so this number, okay, how much do they owe on their mortgage? I'm going to put that. Do they have a second mortgage or a HELOC? We're going to put that. Is the buyer asking for any closing costs, for us to pay any closing costs? So if they are, okay, they're asking us to pay for their 2-1 buy down, which is, say they need $12,000. So I put that in there. Is there a transfer fee? Remember that one was $812. The seller's going to pay for it. Are there any other fees that they have? So then it comes over here to this column. Now, so I do this twofold. When I am doing a listing presentation, I kind of give them a net, estimated net sheet of, if we sell it for $785, we're going to get this. If we sell it for $800, we're going to get a different number, right? So, but if we just have one offer, then say the offer is $795. Okay, so this is going to give them an estimate. So minus the transaction fee, minus the listing agent, selling agent, the escrow fees. So these right here are all included in this $5,000. They're going to pay for a $500 warranty, the tax proration. So the taxes were $37, but they only have to pay till $627. So they're going to pay $1,567 at closing. Their payoff from their first mortgage, their payoff from the second mortgage, they're paying the 2-1 buy down of $12,000. They're going to pay for the HOA transfer. So their total selling expenses include $420,000, but then they're going to net an estimation of $374,000. So this is really good for your clients to just to have that, a lot of people are visual people. I need to see it on paper before. Yeah, so I really like to do this. Okay, so over here, I added this on too. So this is important contract information. So I go to the contract and I picked out all those important sections and I say, okay, what are those important sections? So earnest money, they're going to do $8,000. They're doing a conventional loan. The deadlines are these. Is it subject to sell? Yes. Possession upon recording. So, and then of course I have this little thing at the bottom. It's an estimate only, the actual numbers will come from the title company, not from me, but I'm just giving them an estimation of what that will be. And most of the time, like I'm pretty close, so this is so that they're expecting it's going to be around this plus or minus a couple $1,000, right? So I do this with every offer. So if by chance we have multiple offers, then I would put offer 1 here, offer 2 here. I would add another column, 3, 4, 5. So then they have all of them there. And then we can look to see which one is going to give them the best net. When we look at the nets, we're like, okay, money's good, but sometimes money is important, but sometimes it's not the only thing that a seller needs. Sometimes they need a quick settlement date, or, they have more earnest money that they're getting. So then I would actually spread this out between each thing too. Probably I should move this down and put the details, underneath on all the lines. So then you have a spreadsheet of all 4 offers. You can see them side by side comparison and see which one's the best.
I love it. You find the seller.
Yeah. So for your logical minded people, this is important. And my clients really love this. So I do that. And then after we decide, okay, So say okay, there's this offer and this offer, but this offer, we liked their deadlines a little bit better. Okay. So I might say, okay, let's go back and we'll say, hey, all of this looks good, but are you willing to come up and purchase price to 800? Or we have another offer for 805. Are you willing to match that? And keep everything else the same? Yes, no. And I personally like to do verbal negotiations after we receive an offer, and so that we only have to do like one counter offer addendum. But sometimes it doesn't play out that way. And sometimes the buyer sends an offer, the seller sends a counter, and then we talk and try to come up with a meeting of the minds. But it is time is of the essence, and we do want to keep the buyer like interested. And so a lot of times what I'll try to do is, okay, we get the offer. I talk to my clients and see what they agree and what they don't agree to. I'll call the buyer's agent. Hey, we really like your offer. Thanks so much for sending it. You guys are awesome. Blah, blah, blah. We looked over your loan, your pre-approval. That looks good. Da, da, da. These are a couple of the things that my clients are thinking. Would your client be willing to do X, Y, Z? They go to their client. Are you willing to do X, Y, Z? No, I'll do X, Y, but not Z. Okay. We do a phone call. All right, that sounds good. I'll write it up, send it over, sign, we're under contract. That's how I like to do it. But, it's all up to what you want to do. Going back here, let's see if we missed anything. We wrote the offer. We talked about most of all of this. Yeah, so also not only do we want to talk about the money, all of this, but we want to make sure that they understand the contract, the buyer and the seller understand it. So before we submit the offer to the seller, we want to make sure that they understand what they're signing. We're going to look at price, closing dates, inspections, contingencies, conveyances, all of that. Anything that's essential. Oh, shoot. Anything that's essential in the area, and any common terms that we have. And we've talked about the rookie agent mistakes of making sure that we're just, paying attention to the contract, looking at the home warranty, looking at is it subject to a sell, looking at those dates. How do those look? What's included, what's not included, kind of things. We're going to present it to our clients. When I talk about having a detailed, being detail oriented, we want to make sure that the offer is complete. So that is something that I'm going to look at when I receive the offer. And then I take those important things and put them onto my spreadsheet, from there, call the lender to make sure that they actually do have a pre-approval. And then go back and forth. So in Command, how we get signatures and everything is in Command. So if I go to that's Hunters. Okay. So first thing that you're going to do when you are going to write a contract is you want to make sure that the contacts are in. So you need to add a new contact if they're not already in your database in Command. So you'd create a new contract or contact. If they're already in the system, then you're going to go to opportunities. Well, actually, you could find them in contacts and do the opportunity there. So if we go Courtney Nielsen, all right, that's me. All right, so we click on my contact, we go to opportunities, we can create an opportunity, and it will automatically create an opportunity for me. Okay, or you can go to, if your contact's already in, you can go to opportunities and you can click create an opportunity, and then you would find the client, Courtney Nielsen. Oh, that's me. Do we have a cold seller? Yes. And then what are we going to name this opportunity? So I like to put, I don't know, my address. Put your address. I like to go Nielsen. I'm seller or listing. And then the address. Okay, create, boom, we're in. So if we go there, oh wait, we're gonna do this as a listing. Create that. What's wrong? Is it creating? Hello? Opportunities, create. I don't know why it's not letting me create. Oh, commission 3. Estimated list. Oh, wait. We're going to do a 6. Estimated listing price 800. Appointment scheduling. Okay, create. Okay, so now I'm in. Now I'm going to go to my opportunities. And okay, I'm going to go to appointment listing. So we click here. What is going on? Oh, we go to documents. Okay, you're going to have to choose, it's a residential listing. It'll auto populate all the forms that you need. Okay. And so I fill those out all on the MLS. Then you're going to start a transaction. Okay, you're going to start this transaction, and that's going to take you to DocuSign. What? Okay, so you're in the room. Now, you're going to drag all of your documents into your room. Here, let's drag this one in. Okay, so we're in documents. We're going to drag our document in. So now it's there. Now we're going to create an envelope, new envelope. And you're going to upload your room documents. Add your recipients. Okay, me. And then you just follow the prompts. So this would already be filled out, right? So all I have to do is add in the initials and signatures. So initial signatures. I'm the seller with the date. Go all the way through. Okay, so if we get to the bottom of the contract and if we're gonna accept it, we're gonna click accept. If we want to counter, I click this one, counter. First, I'm gonna counter. And I'm gonna put the addendum. So there's already been addendum 1 and 2. So we're gonna counter on addendum 3. Okay. So if there's addendum 1 and 2 that are part of the contract, Rep C, then we have to counter every single one of those. Addendum 1, addendum 2, and the Rep C we're going to counter with addendum 3. Because Rep C 1 and 2 are all included as part of the offer, right? I think you go over this part with Dean more when you do the scenarios, the case studies. Anyway, you'd send it. Okay, so we're gonna go back to command. Once you've signed all of those, let me see if I can find. Let me find an old one. Oh, geez. Okay, so this was our house that we sold a couple years ago. Oh my gosh, come on. Okay, we go to the documents. So it has the exclusive right to sell. It's really cool because you can select from the room docs. And so if I needed to put in an ERS addendum, I just click on this and it shows all of our documents that are in DocuSign. It's linked. So I just find the right one. So this one right here, exclusive right to sale. That was our listing era, Michael and Courtney, what we paid, blah, blah. Has that, has the input, has our wire fraud. So you have to make sure that you include all of the wire frauds and you need to make sure that they're the ones that are signed. And then you go to, after you've put in your listing documents and you go to under contract documents, you have to put in the real estate contract. You have to put in the earnest money confirmation. If there are any addenda, you have to put those in. The MLS printout, you have to put in the seller's property disclosure signed by both parties in. Any additional documents that you want to add here, put those in. And then when you go to close, if it's a listing, you have to put the transaction document in and the MLS sold printout. So there was a sold. Then Sharon pays us and she'll get the check and she'll put in the closing docs and the DA and all of the things to get paid. Now, if you want to get paid on your deal, you go to offers and commissions. You add in your offer, you put in the information, and then you go to the commission tab and you fill everything in it. Because it was a personal transaction, we were only charged $500 for that one, so it shows like nothing, right? But anyway, it would go and it would show you all of the details and how much you're going to pay and when. Anyway, when you get to this point, if you need help, I'm sure somebody will help you. Hunter, Molly, me, I'm happy to help you. Yeah, so, okay, so command, you want to put everything into command. And then the last thing, remember, when a buyer makes an offer, the seller can respond in 3 ways: accept, counter, reject. Accept means we're under contract. Counter means we're still negotiating. Rejects means We can walk away or continue negotiations. Once we've reached a decision, then we're on to the next. And here we go. Boom, boom, boom. Anything that you want. What did you learn?
You're very skilled in utilizing command and the Excel, and you know how to like. I feel like I really need to exercise and practice how to present to sellers or buyers using those tools.
Yeah.
And this is really helpful. I think as a client, I will love it too.
Oh, good.
It makes the realtors so different from other realtors.
Yeah. I actually had somebody tell me that recently when I was at a listing appointment. No other agent, I guess I was competing with 2 other agents, and the other agents didn't give them any kind of net sheet. And so that was really helpful. They loved this part. So, I mean, we're just, making up numbers. Okay, if we sell it for $785, what would it be? If we sell it for $815, what would it be? But at least they know worst case scenario, because that's what I try to give them when I'm doing the listing presentation. I would give them a worst case scenario. Okay, I think the house is worth low end $785, high end $815. You can list low, high, or somewhere in between. What do you want to do, client? And I'll say, okay, well, let's factor it if we listed low, or what if this didn't sell at all and we had to like reduce the price or something? We could put in a scenario that way, and then they could see what their net would be at the worst case and the best case. So worst case, we're going to get this. Best case, we're going to get this. And they love that. So thanks. Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, any questions or anything?
I think you answer like all of them that I
Good, good. Ah, thank you. You're amazing. I'm so glad you're here at KW. And seriously, anytime you need any help or whatever, please reach out. You have my number, and know where my office is. So come on over anytime. And
I really love your profile picture. You look like
oh, thanks. My headshot person is Carrie Mann with Purple Moss Photography. She's amazing. I love her. And so when I was doing that headshot, we were actually doing a bus campaign, and it was driving through the city. So I wanted to look like my hair was like blowing. So she actually put fans on me. Anyway, thanks. So yeah, if you don't have any other questions, then we are.
Are you able to share this playbook?
Yeah, I can share. Yes, I can share.